All right, Rock Addicts. This is DJ Rem from Rock Addict Radio, and I have Graham from Resonance Project on the line. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, mate. I'm very well. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I totally appreciate it. So why don't we start with go ahead and introduce yourself and anybody else that's in this project and helps with this.
Okay, well, my name is Graham Green. I'm a guitar player. I live in Perth, in Western Australia, and Resonance Project is a thing that my wife and I put together around January of 2008, when we were asked to travel to Hanoi in North Vietnam and play a concert there for a special event that was being put on at the National Stadium there. And up to that time, I'd been playing instrumental rock sort of stuff, the guitar music, and interspersed the tracks on my albums with vocal tracks featuring Donna, my wife. And in order to do this big concert, I thought having vocal tracks would be a little bit accessible to the general public, especially to the North Vietnamese. So rather than doing the trip and the concert as Graham Green or the Graham Green Band, we decided to form a group with Donna out the front and do all vocal tracks. And a little time before the concert, we had written a song called Resonance, Spirit of Man, which we had we'd donated to a charity called Stop Child Executions, which is based in Canada. And we just took the name of that song and called the band Resonance Project and went and did this concert, which was at My Dinh National Stadium in Hanoi. And we played to about 15,000 people. We had about 6 million watching on television. And the show went that well, and we had so much fun doing the songs and playing the show that we thought we'd keep the project going when we got back to Australia. And we've written more songs and done gigs under the name Resonance Project. And we put the thing on hold towards the end of 2009 when we started working with an American expat who now lives in Adelaide called Jack Dalton, and we did an album with him that is currently in release. So the Resonance Project stuff and my solo stuff got put on hold while we were doing that, and we're just working on Jack's second album, and the demos are done. So we have a bit of spare time to pick up where we left off with the Resonance Project. And we have a digital EP, a 3-track digital EP coming out very soon. And we'll be working on recording a full Resonance Project album as well as a new solo album for myself.
Very cool. So this EP, I'm assuming that's the tunes I have is from the EP. Where did you record this at?
I recorded them at home. They were essentially good quality demos that we'd used for the other guys in Resonance Project to learn the songs for, and as something that gave us a high quality guideline for what we wanted to do when we sort of raised the bar a bit. And the quality of the stuff turned out well enough that people, we were basically browbeaten into doing this release by our friend Rick Palin in England. He assured, he said, this stuff is great, it deserves to be heard. And we thought, well, while we're working on getting a complete album recorded and ready for release, we'd put something out there just to get the name of the band back out there, because a few people had been paying attention, and just sort of just get us back in the mode for doing our own stuff. And that's what we're doing at present.
So have you done anything live in Australia with this?
Yes, we've played quite a few gigs around Perth over the last few years. As I say, that the last couple of years were pretty much taken up with working with Jack, but before that, we were doing gigs as Resonance Project and as the Graham Green Band, but even doing the show under my name. Donna would get up and sing some of the songs just to break up the instrumentals. So Perth is really the only city in Western Australia. It's also the most isolated city on the planet. So while we can do regional work and tour the state, there are large distances involved. So while we're in Perth, we're pretty much limited to playing within the city, which is about 2 million people. And
Okay.
there are a few, yeah, so there's a few good venues, and we do that, and we play often enough to keep our hands in.
Nothing like picking the most isolated place in the world. That's
Yes, it is. It's a beautiful place, and the isolation was a downside, but the upside is that we a lot of development happened here that and some unique styles were developed, and of course, since the internet has been in existence, all the distances are pretty much meaningless unless you actually want to hop on a plane and travel for 30 hours to get to somewhere in the northern hemisphere. But now we've got a lot of people finding us on the net, and we're doing a lot of work with people in America and Europe and the UK via the internet. So we're sort of hoping to get the stuff out there via the digital domain, and if we kick a few goals in another country, then we're always ready to up sticks and hop on a plane and come and play somewhere.
very cool. So, how long have you been in the music industry? I mean, how long have you been doing this?
I picked up a guitar around about the age of 15. I turned pro in 1982. I was hired to do a tour with a well-known female singer in Australia at the time called Kim Hart, and we did 30 shows in 31 days, travelling around Western Australia. So in those 31 days, we covered about 11,000 kilometres. So the work was intensive, but we were young, we were happy, we were playing music, which is a hell of a lot better than selling shoes or digging ditches. So
Exactly.
it was a great, yeah, and it was a great intro into the industry. Everything was well run. You got to see how things were organised, and rehearsals were organised. There was an itinerary of where and when we were travelling. We were fed, we were sheltered, we were, supplied. Our crew travelled with us, so all of the gear was there, and it was run very well. So that was a good baptism of fire, if you like. It was intense work, but I got to see how things were done properly. So I've been basically professional in the music industry for 30 years now. So I've played in bands and worked under my own name. I've also done producing work, and I've also worked as a music journalist. So anything that's to do with the music industry, I've got involved in to one level or another. So I've been doing it for quite a while now.
It's very cool. And I tell you what, there seems to be quite a few good bands and artists coming out of Australia lately. So it's really cool.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of great talent down here. The isolation is really up, unless you want to physically go somewhere, the isolation is no longer the problem that it used to be. And there've been some great bands come out of Australia. In excess and known internationally, and even today there are some great rock and metal bands that are coming out. We were known, Air Supply was sort of like a soft rock ballad type band that moved
Right.
to America and made it pretty big. But we've got like in Perth, there's a, a great metal scene. There's a band here called Chaos Divine who recently did a progressive metal version of Toto's song Africa, and it caught the attention of Steve Lukather, who via a friend sent them a message that he loved it and it was the best version of the song that he'd heard. And there's some other bands. There's a band here in Perth called Ragdoll who recently just came back from playing a festival in America. They played a festival up there and then did some club dates and then came back. There's another band called Stone Circle that recently returned from South America, having toured there. So there are some guys getting out there now that are doing quite well in various markets around the place. We've got blues bands and rock bands, metal bands, and the the variety of stuff that's coming out of Australia now is quite large. We used to be sort of your pub rock bands or bands that really sounded Australian. and some of the bands that have, AC/DC, of course, are from Australia, and they've made their living and now make their homes overseas to the extent that a lot of people now don't even know that they're Australians.
Right, right. Yeah, it's very cool. I tell you, I recently interviewed a band. I don't know if you've heard of them. Empires of Eden. Stu Marshall started them.
Heard the name, but not actually heard the band.
Yeah, you should check them out sometime. You might.
Cool.
I think you'd dig them. But anyways, just an example of another Australian band that I really dig. So where's a good place for people to go to find out more about the Renaissance Project?
Uh, we've got some Resonance Project videos on YouTube. There's some footage from the concert that we played in Vietnam. Um, and there's some other like handy cam footage from club shows that we've done. We have a website, resonanceproject.com.au, and my own website, grahamgreen.com.au. Whenever there's new news to do with Resonance Project or Jack Dalton or my own stuff, it appears there. We've got a Facebook page, so a quick Google will pretty much find us on the net pretty quickly.
Very good. And then is this EP going to be available there as well?
It won't be available directly through our sites. It will be through the store of Firebrand Rock Radio, which is an internet station, and we're hoping to get it up as soon as possible on iTunes and CD Baby and the associated download sites, like Amazon and eMusic and that sort of thing. So we're working on that at the moment. It's the EP Rise and Fall has been made available to the media, so people have been picking up on that. We've had about 9 or 10 radio stations pick it up for rotations. So we're hoping within the next couple of weeks we will have some news as to where people can go to download the EP.
Very cool. Yep. And speaking of that, I have you in rotation at Rock Addict Radio, so there's another one for you to add to your list.
Uh, Brilliant. Thank you very much, Rock Addict Radio.
Yep. Very cool. Okay, so if I grabbed your iPod, this is just more of a personal question for you. If I grabbed your iPod or MP3 player, however you'd like
Yeah.
to listen to music, what would I find you listening to these days?
You would find me listening to a broad range of things. While I've never actually owned an iPod or a portable digital music player, I listen to stuff through the computer at home and that sort of vibe. I listen to a great deal of stuff. The last CD that I actually went out and bought was a classical one of two Australian women that play the recorder and the classical guitar. Um, uh, After listening, having said that, I also listen to bands like Dream Theater, the old classics, Zeppelin, Purple Sabbath, that sort of thing. Um, I like my guitar players. I've always been a big fan of Larry Carlton, Steve Morse, Eric Johnson, guys like that. I've been often compared to guys like Steve Vai and Joe Satriani, so I'm very aware of them. Um, but as a kid, I grew up in the bush, where in the outback, where there was no television and there was no commercial radio. So a lot of the radio that we got just through the ABC, which is the Australian national broadcaster, was BBC programming. So there was a lot of country music, but a lot of classical music as well. So the first person that I actually really got into was Beethoven, and I listened to everything sort of from that to ragtime piano, like Scott Joplin and that sort of thing. And I didn't sort of get into modern music until I moved down to Perth as a teenager to go to boarding school, and then started. Once I got into modern music, I remember the track that turned me on to rock and roll was "Flight of the Rat" off Deep Purple in Rock. So I'll go back and listen to old stuff, but I'll also pick up on new stuff that my friends turn me on to. When I discovered Dream Theater, I thought they were great. I'm a huge fan of Rush, have been for years and years. So, I guess guitar-oriented stuff you'll find me leaning towards. But overall, quite an eclectic mix. If I had an iPod, you would find stuff on it that would probably surprise you.
There's nothing wrong with that because that's what I always tell my friends are
Yeah,
always like, I cannot believe you listen to that band. I'm like, you just don't know me.
yeah. You'll find you'll find something good everywhere. And as a composer and a player, I guess subconsciously my ears are always open for new new influences, and you will find that anywhere. I'm primarily a hard rock player, but I will find inspiration is in jazz, blues, classical, world music. You'll pick up the strangest melodic or rhythmic ideas from the strangest places, and you can take that and put it into your style and let it sort of soak in, and it becomes part of what you do, and it helps you to develop an individual voice.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. I think bands and artists, musicians that have that eclectic, wide range of musical taste, I think they produce better music than these people that are focused and just kind of, I don't know, tunnel visioned into one type of music. I get so upset. It
Yeah.
irritates the heck out of me when people say, "Well, I only listen to this genre of music." I'm like, how can you stick yourself to one genre? There's so much music out there.
Yeah, it's very limiting, and having a broad musical palette, whether you play it all, whether you or not you wear your influences on your sleeve with all the stuff that you do, it can also give you longevity because, if you're into a particular pigeonhole of, Tibetan leaping, hardcore metal polka, then as soon as that goes out of vogue, you're buggered. Whereas if you can if you just, I just call it rock and roll. I play rock and roll, whether people call me a shredder or metal
Right.
or or whatever. You make it, and you do what fills your soul, and you just hope and assume that if you like it, then someone else will. And then the trick, especially in today's market, is to find those people that share the same tastes and views as you, and get them to listen to your music.
Exactly. And if I ever find that genre of music you just rattled off, I'll let you know. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
I'd be lucky to remember it. I hope you're recording the show.
Yes, I am. Definitely.
There we go. We can get it on playback, and we might be starting something new here.
We might be. Might be. Okay, so let's talk about shows. What's the craziest thing that's ever happened to you at a live show that you've done?
Um, well, there was one show in the early '80s where I had a small accident and was ferried very quickly from the back of the stage to a hospital with a suspected brain hemorrhage. That got everyone's attention. Um, It was basically the result of jumping up in the air and doing one of those big David Lee Roth leaps, but not looking where I was going and cracking my head on some angle iron that was exposed above the stage. We've had some strange people turn up to gigs. Some of the stories regarding errant fans and that sort of thing aren't really good for public consumption.
Right, right.
But we're playing in Vietnam was actually a very interesting thing because in the north of Vietnam, they're nowhere near as westernized as they are in the south, in the old Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City. So we got to Vietnam. We were met at the airport by a guy holding a card with Resonance Project written on it, and we had a posse of about 8 people. There were drivers. We had our own bus, so we had a driver, bodyguards, people to carry our stuff, and translators. But the translators didn't really speak English all that well, so there was a lot of sign language and smiling and nodding. And they were absolutely beautiful to us. But there was this fellow came up to me, and he'd been staring at me for quite a while, and I I wear a bandana around my head a lot. It's just sort of a thing that I've got into. And at the time, I had that little bit of hair you grow on your bottom lip, the soul patch.
Right.
And so I sort of smiled at him and sort of made the gesture like, you know, is there something you want to say? And he sort of looked at me and he said, you look like Hollywood movie star. And I thought, yeah, that's cool. And then he said, you look like Pirate of Caribbean. And I thought that was really cool. And but then I stopped and I thought, wait a minute, does he mean Johnny Depp or Keith Richards? So I didn't know whether to take that as a compliment or not. But he was smiling when he said it, so I thought, yeah, that's good.
That's funny.
That's cool. Yeah, it's a lot of things happen on the road. you will sit down with musicians and chew the fat and spin yarns and trade stories. And there have been interesting shows on the road where uh, no one was hurt, so they were kind of funny. There was one particular band that I played in as a sort of a fill-in. We'd just go away to the country and play gigs in country towns. So I won't mention the band, but every single time that we went away, something disastrous would happen, and it wouldn't be someone left a guitar strap behind or something. It would be something where half of the gear would be written off in an accident, or the car we were traveling in would be totaled, or we'd get to a town and the venue that we were playing in had no food and no accommodation, and we'd be stuck in the middle of the goldfields with nowhere to go. And the guy who was running the show had just got into a fist fight with the manager of the venue, so we weren't really sure whether or not we were going to survive the gig or get thrown out or whatever. And so when you're traveling in the country, it would probably be the same in America when you're traveling the small towns and through, what would be your back country. You do come across some very unusual and interesting characters. And if you make the trick is to make friends with them straight away, and then you're pretty much safe because one, you'll get no trouble from them, and two, if there is trouble, chances are they're going to step in on your behalf and keep you safe.
Right. Well, cool. I appreciate you sharing those stories. Those are badass.
Yeah, it's good fun. It's
Yep.
there's a lot of hard work involved with it that the public wouldn't see. They see us having fun on stage, but of course, that's the reward for going to all the rehearsals and putting up with all the idiots that you have to deal with in the industry, as I guess you do in any industry. But at the end of the day, you wouldn't really want to be doing anything else.
So, okay, this question is kind of like, this is something I've never experienced because I'm not a musician, but tell me what it's like to stand in front of 15,000 people screaming when you're playing music.
Um, it's very exciting. I've sort of never. I'm sort of more self-conscious standing in the middle of a crowded dance floor where no one is even aware of my existence than I am standing on a stage in front of 15,000 people with a spotlight on me. I'm as comfortable standing on that stage in that situation as I am sitting here talking to you now. So um, there's a great deal of excitement, and before you go on, the anticipation of doing it. It's like it would be like a football player in the change rooms getting ready to run onto the field to play the Super Bowl. There's the adrenaline rush. There's all the endorphins there, and the sound of the crowd when you walk out onto the stage is sort of like if you stand on the beach where the waves are crashing with your hands over your ears and then slowly take your hands off your ears. There's that big wash of sound that goes over you, and that just electrifies you. If you're feeling a little tired or not really in the mood before the show, you walk out on stage and you see, hear, and feel all those people, and it just boosts you right up. And before you know it, you're having the time of your life. You found energy that you didn't know you had, and after the show, you might just collapse and die the death. But it's really a great feeling. We've playing here in Perth, back in the early 90s, we did a show with Bon Jovi when they were traveling on the New Jersey tour. They'd done the New Jersey album. And we played at the Perth Entertainment Centre, which held 8,500 people at capacity. And of course, Bon Jovi packed the joint. And we had played with Meatloaf a couple of years earlier, and that hadn't been a pleasant experience. So working with Bon Jovi, I was wondering, are these guys going to be wankers? Are they not going to give us any lights? Are the guys in the band going to be, up themselves? Are the crew going to be rude? And pleasantly, they were all wonderful people. The crew was second to none. The crew chief, Rocco, who was, of course, a New Jersey boy, um, he sort of said, anything you want. They ran our own power grid because all their gear was on your voltage. They gave us the whole light show, with the exception of the Very lights. We got to use the whole PA, which sometimes they limit. The guys in the band were cool. Of course, you didn't see too much of John or Richie because, they were sort of the focal point. But I was chatting to David Bryan for a while, and the thing that they didn't realise was that the band I was in at the time, Ice Tiger, was very big in Perth. And while there were 8,500 people there that were Bon Jovi fans, there were also 8,500 Ice Tiger fans there. So we started our support set, and the crowd was up on their feet and down the front, and security didn't know what had hit them. They weren't expecting it that soon, and I remember seeing Tico Torres and David Bryan standing side of stage, the shortest and tallest members of the band. And I saw Tico look at the crowd and his eyebrows went up and he nudged Dave in the ribs and said, "Hey, look at that." And they sort of had a bit of a giggle that like, oh, these guys must be pretty good. But the feeling of playing to people like that is, it's it's something that you don't forget. You forget some things, but the feeling that it gives you stays with you. And I think that's why you keep going back for more, even if, you get to the end of a tour and you think, that was just shattering. I don't know if I want to do that again, but then someone says, hey, there's some dates here or some dates there. And as soon as people start talking about doing a show, then that little thing turns over in your stomach and you get that flutter and the excitement's there again and you just have to go and play.
Well, very cool. I truly appreciate you sharing those stories with me. That's awesome, dude. Very cool.
My, my pleasure.
So before I forget, I want to make sure that we give props to Donna because her vocals in Resonance Project are amazing. So make sure
Uh,
that you tell her I said hello because totally dig her voice. Her voice rocks.
I certainly will. Thank you very much. Donna was sort of late starting as a singer. She was always a fan of music, but through one thing and another, she didn't take that step into becoming a musician. And when she did, there were a lot of jaws dragging on the ground. She's been compared quite often to Ann Wilson from Heart. Um, and other rock singers. She's not a big girl, but she's got a huge voice. And we sort of do a fun band here in Perth. We're called Lady Zeppelin, and we do all Led Zeppelin songs, of course. And I've seen people walk in and look at the band and go, "Oh yeah, a chick singing Led Zeppelin. How's this going to be?" And by the time we're halfway through the set, these people have completely forgotten any of their reservations, and Donna always gets rave reviews. And I mean, I've been fortunate enough to play with some very, very good players and singers over the years. And Donna is easily as good as anyone I've ever worked with. And, the fact that we're married makes it, doubly enjoyable because neither of us have to like, I'm off to the gig now, dear. Good night. Oh, okay. I'll miss you. See you when you get home. We're both gear in the car and off we go. And
Right.
we travel together, we play together, we live together, and um, it's great to have someone with that talent, that you walk on stage, it's going to happen first time, every time. And I have to agree with you. All husbandly bias aside, she's a fantastic singer, and the more people that get to hear her, the better. Because really good female vocalists, in particular in rock and prog and metal, there's a lot of screamers out there, and full respect to all the girls that are out there doing it, and I love them all. But Donna really is something special, and she's the secret weapon that we have with our staff.
Yep. Very cool. Well, definitely horns high to Donna.
Oh yeah, I'll pass that on. Thank you.
All right. Anything else that you would like to talk about with Resonance Project? Anything I have not asked you or brought up that you want to make sure people know about you?
Um, Not really. I think the best thing that people could do would be to find us on either Reverb Nation or Facebook or YouTube. Resonance Project. It's as it's spelled. And if you find the tracks and have a look at the photos, and feel free to find us on Facebook, like the page, drop us a line. We're quite approachable. We're laid back Aussies. We'll say hello to anyone and have a chat. And basically, we're looking at doing some stuff, getting some more stuff out there next year. Recording a full album, which we're writing and recording for at the moment. And if there are any promoters up there with some money that they need to lose, so the internal revenue don't get them, well, we're always available to come up and make a racket with our American friends.
Very cool, dude. Very cool. Okay, one last thing I'd like to ask is if you wouldn't
Yep,
mind making a couple of radio tags for me.
certainly.
So the first one, just you can say your name and the band, and
Yep,
that you're listening to rockaddictradio.com.
rockaddictradio.com. Okay, I think I can do that. Let's try one. Hi, this is Graham Green from Resonance Project down in Australia, and you're listening to rockaddictradio.com.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, the second one, same thing, but throw that you're listening to DJ REM at Rock Addict Radio.
DJ REM. Okay, can do. G'day, this is Graham Green coming to you all the way from Australia, and you're listening to DJ REM on rockaddictradio.com.
Okay, very cool, man. Totally appreciate it. Totally
Beautiful.
appreciate you staying up late and taking the time to talk to me. And